Hey guys, Henry here, doing something a little bit different today. I'm trying a new venture, the React type videos. To this very specific video is one from Matthew Hussey around the topic of love bombing, and so let's go ahead and listen in and respond.
In his text, there's a lot of us talk of living together, how many kids I'd want, asking me for my preferences on houses, calling me wifey, etc. Help. How do I differentiate between love bombing and genuine intention?
How long has she been speaking to this man?
She met him
That's a very
online.
But
important
how long
question.
ago?
It doesn't say. But is it appropriate for someone who you've met?
No.
Yeah.
No, 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 no.
So I agree with him 100% on that point, and the reason he asked that is because that's very important. You got to understand that if you just met someone, you haven't spent any time with them, or you haven't spent any time of any substantial time with them, or any depth or quality of time with them, then it's really hard for you. Like the person would not really have any reason to actually say that they love you already, or they're planning on talking about kids and the type of lifestyle that they want to have. Now, and I'm a little bit different than most people, so my perspectives are gonna vary just a little bit, and I'll get more into that in just a second. But off the bat, any person who is overly emotional in their who commits too much too early in the relationship tends to be because that individual has issues with themselves that they haven't yet healed. They might have some childhood trauma they need to get over. They need what it is basically they have their emotions out of order. They have chaotic emotions, and what they need to do is learn how to put those emotions in their order so that they can give them so that those emotions can have the life that they're supposed to have. Right now, with that being said, it is my perspective is if you meet someone, right, and you say you find them attractive or whatever, and you have the intent to go down that route, then I like to be very clear and upfront from the beginning. So we'll say, hey, listen, well, actually, I don't just off the bat go that route anyway, because really what you want to do is the following. You want to set time to get to know each other outside, even if there is some interest initially. You got to set the foundation for, like, look, first we're going to see if we're actually compatible before we get into any emotions involved. And so that's where the character of love comes into play. Once you see that person displaying the character of love to you, and that their life, their complementary, their clarity for their life is complementary to yours, then you can go ahead and speak more directly about actually getting into a relationship, and having that aspect of the relationship. Now let's get into see what else the video talks about.
Very little about what was just said that's appropriate. It's, you know, it that's has love bombing written all over it.
How do you not get swept up? Because it's a lovely thing to hear, right? You meet someone you find attractive, whatever, and they're saying all the right things, and they're saying all these, like, how do you stop yourself from getting carried away in those kinds of words?
Here's what you hear.
So that's a good question, and again, my thoughts vary a bit, because if I find someone, and if I see meet someone, and in our first interaction I see that there's a lot of I'm able to a lot of identify a lot of complementary, a lot of what's the word I'm looking for, a lot of character traits that are complementary, right? Or a lot of alignment, I guess would be a more accurate word. Then I don't let I don't let my emotions take off running. I say to myself, I say, okay, this is interesting. They've got character traits that I would like, personality types that I find attractive. Let's start. Let's just see how their character holds up over time, because the person one time in time encounter with somebody, they can leave a certain impression with you, but that's not necessarily their character. The character you discover over time, because character speaks of how consistent a person is in their traits, right? And so, on one aspect, it could be love bombing. And again, who's if it's a person who you just met, who doesn't really seem to have clarity for their life, but yet they're all involved emotionally, then that would probably be love bombing. But for someone who is a mature individual and who values time, being clear on what they want and seeing if you are aligned with what would be complementary for that person, then it's not love bombing, because it's too mature people. And bombing can primarily happen when you don't have control over your emotions.
You're in your head. You hear, imagine someone just rang your phone like it was an unknown number, and you picked it up, and it was a
I'm gonna
automated
skip this
message,
part because I
and
saw
it
this a little
said,
bit earlier.
"You have been selected from a random pool of people to."
Oh, and so then with this piece about how do you keep from getting swept away from being of if you're being love bombed, right? Well, so understanding again, right? The way that works, manipulation works based off of of emotion, not off of character, right? So the way you can resist being love bombed or being manipulated through uh, false expressions of care is by one knowing what actual love is and knowing that love is not believing that love is not an emotion, that it is character, and that if these character traits are not observed in the individual towards themselves or towards you, then love does not exist in that individual, in that relationship. And so how do you prevent yourself from being swept up when someone's trying to manipulate you? Well, you keep your emotions in check. You manage their words against their actions to see if their words and actions align or if they don't. Because if a person's words and actions don't align, believe the actions, don't believe the words. And so that's very you can prevent being swept up in love bombing by having emotional maturity and being able to differentiate between character and words.
To collect $2 million. All you need to do to collect your winnings is to speak now with your back. If someone out of nowhere starts saying, wifey this, wifey that, we're going to have this many kids, we're going to live in this house, either they are projecting to a scary degree, which means that there's something unhealthy about them, and
That's what we were talking about earlier.
believe they're this in love with you, and they're mistaken because they don't even know you. So that
That's
love isn't real,
a huge piece there.
and you're dealing with a really unhealthy person.
Red flags, red flags, red flags. Something I've had to to share with someone recently is that oftentimes we may have good intent and want well for the individual, and we may even care for them or love them, but oftentimes we find that by removing ourselves from that relationship, not only are we taking care of ourselves, but we're actually helping the other person progress in their life also, because it might be a pain of point that they needed to be able to grow, right? And so it's important that you get to a point where you don't allow, you have more dominion over your emotions than your emotions over you.
Or you're dealing with a scammer.
Again, right? So if you have your emotions in control, and even in a selling environment, you are always able to have logic and to reason, right? And so it's important that you identify if somebody is actually is saying these words to you of that obviously have no foundation, because you haven't known each other long enough, and there hasn't been quality time spent together, and obviously they've got something else in mind.
What they're scamming you out of, it might be sex, it might be money, it might be just all of your energy, and they're not going to give you anything in return. They're just going to bring you out to San Diego and have a.
And so I'll end on this topic of love bombing with this. Basically, so the difference between love bombing and genuine expressions of love is the intent with which it is expressed. And you can tell the intent with which something is expressed by an individual's character. If their character does not reflect the character of love, then they're not coming from a point of love, they're coming from a point of manipulation, and you do not want to receive that at all. If you'd like more clarity on what love is, make sure you visit henryslab.com/love is, so that you can watch my free masterclass on exactly what love is, so that you can no longer be deceived and no longer be a victim of love bombing. See you there.